I want to say, with respect to our public safety initiatives, over the last few weeks, I've reached out to a number of people to get your ideas, your thoughts on steps that we could take in addressing the rising crime wave that's occurring in our city. And so I want to thank all the persons who have responded. Council members sent in their ideas. I want to thank Crime Stoppers Urania for, and you'll be hearing more from Crime Stoppers. I want to thank community leaders who provided input and others. And we have tried to talk with many to incorporate into a strategy that we think aligns and works well and can be impactful for our city. Joining me today as speakers, of course, will be Chief Troy Fenner of the Houston Police Department, Noel Rangel of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Richard Kalodi of FBI Houston Special Agent in Charge, Meena Patel Davis, Director of the Mayor's Office of Human Trafficking and Domestic Violence, Rainier Macarius of Crime Stoppers Houston, Councilmember Abby Kamen, who is the District C, but the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and State Representative Ann Johnson of District 134 here in Houston, Harris County. The city of Houston, like most major cities across the country, is experiencing a surge in violent crimes. And let me just say, even in my remarks, I'm not going to be able to cover all of the initiatives and speak to them in the depth that I would like. But I would encourage people to get a copy of the One Safe Houston book that's been made available, or you can go online and read it as well. And this will cover all of the things that I will be laying out. There are no easy answers and no singular initiative standing by itself that can adequately address rising crime. But the impact of COVID-19 pandemic cannot be ignored and requires a holistic and comprehensive approach and strategy. Other factors contributing to the nationwide spike in violent crime include widespread social anxiety, economic uncertainty, mental health concerns, the increased presence of illegally owned firearms, and a strained court system plagued by criminal case backlogs that impact the pretrial release and prosecution of violent offenders. As your mayor, however, it is my responsibility to focus on the city of Houston, even while we are dealing with a nationwide rise in crime. My primary responsibility is what's taking place in the city of Houston. Last year, the city launched a violent crime initiative that resulted in the reduction of crime in many identified hotspots. By the end of the initiative, all violent crime categories were reduced except in the homicide area. Unfortunately, the increase in homicides during the first month of 2022, including assaults on police officers and citizens, is a sobering reminder that we must collectively strive for excellence as a community to combat our increasing crime challenges. Houstonians, it is time for us to act collectively, comprehensively, and holistically to address the rising crime in our city. Every Houstonian deserves to feel safe, and every Houstonians deserve to be able to go to and from this city and are safe. Safe at home, safe at work, safe while driving down the street, safe while shopping, and safe with their families in our own parks. Since the beginning of the year, our city has felt anything but safe. And at times, we have felt like a city under siege because of a violent crime wave that is sweeping across the country and even impacting us in the city of Houston. Let me be as clear as I can. Violent crime is a public health crisis made worse by many factors, including the pandemic and too many guns on our streets. Domestic violence cases have more than doubled since 2019, and more people are experiencing mental health distress, leading to interactions with police resulting in dangerous or deadly outcomes. Last week, 3 Houston police officers were shot and wounded by a suspect carrying a fully automatic weapon who fired multiple rounds in a busy neighborhood. The gunman, who was wanted on a felony warrant at the time of the shooting, was not concerned about the lives of law enforcement or the families living nearby. It is understandable that many in our community are frightened and outraged because these violent crimes shock the conscience of our city and shake the very foundation of a city that is known as a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. And as I said on the day the 3 officers were shot last week, we are living in inherently dangerous times, and it's going to take all of us working together to keep our city safe. The fact that we are living in extremely inherent times does not mean that becomes the normal, or the norm, or acceptable, or this is the way it is. We can do something about it, and we start doing something about it even now. Police officers cannot do it alone, and it is important that we give them the tools to work with, the support that they need, and join with them in creating a comprehensive and holistic approach to combat violent crime. To realize this vision, we are launching the One Safe Houston Crime Reduction Initiative, which focuses on 4 key areas. 1, violence reduction and crime prevention. 2, crisis response teams. 3, key community partnerships. And 4, youth outreach opportunities. One Safe Houston is a comprehensive violence reduction initiative that links research-based strategies to improve public safety and reduce the harms caused by violent crime. In this public safety ecosystem, HPD, the Houston Police Department, is a vital stakeholder. Let me say from the very beginning, we appreciate every single police officer that comes and works for the city of Houston, all 5,200 of them and more. We appreciate and value their service, and we are supportive of their service. And we want them to come to work and return home safely to their families. It is not just about them protecting others. It is important that we give them everything they need to protect themselves and to do their jobs. And this city has been and remains committed to doing just that. Whatever they need, we will stand by them. We have never reduced the budget of HPD. Never. And we will continue to provide them with what they need because we know that they do have an inherently dangerous job. And in many cases, sometimes far too much, they pay the ultimate sacrifice. They are on the front lines. And as we add more police through our cadet classes, in fact, one will graduate on March the 3rd, we will also be putting more boots on the ground now. I have authorized Chief Fenner and HPD to add an additional 125 officers per day on overtime. These additional officers will be deployed primarily based on data-driven, evidence-based analysis of when and where the most violent crimes are occurring, and to provide more visibility towards crime deterrence and rapid response to crimes in progress. As we graduate more, it is important now that we have more boots on the ground, and we will move forward in getting that done. The cost of this initiative will be $5.7 million. To complement HPD, the city will invest $1.9 million to increase the number of park rangers by 15. They will work as partners with local law enforcement, and we are committed to keeping our parks safe. There is no question there are too many guns on the streets. In order to play a role in reducing that number, the city will invest $1 million in a robust gun buyback initiative to remove more illegal or unwanted firearms from the streets that could ultimately be used as crime guns. We will focus on the most dangerous neighborhoods to address crime in general. HPD will provide added safety to our shopping areas, synagogues, mosques, and other faith-based institutions. As a city, We must collectively condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We must also collectively condemn violence against Asians, people of color, members of the LGBTQ community, and other targeted groups. If not, our silence makes us complicit to these acts of violence. The investigative divisions within HPD and other city departments will work together to address nightclubs and convenience stores where repeated crimes of violence have occurred. As an example, on January 28, 2022, the city filed a common nuisance lawsuit against the operator of MVP Food Store at 4718 Lockwood, the property owner, and the property itself under State Law Chapter 125 of the Texas Civil Practices and Remedies Code, Chapter 125. The city's lawsuit alleges criminal activity at MVP Food Store, including rampant drug dealing, aggravated assaults, and shootings over the past year. MVP Food Store is a known drug haven located close to Cashmere Gardens Elementary School and has significantly impacted the health and safety of the community. The city's lawsuit seeks injunctive relief and asks the courts to compel the defendant to abate the criminal activity of MVP Food Store. Chapter 125 has been an effective tool in helping the city and HPD combat criminal hotspots where property owners and operators fail to take reasonable measures to address the criminal activity on their property. Our patience has run out. Even with pandemic restrictions, this past year alone, the city successfully closed 8 massage parlors with suspected human trafficking activity, where 4 lawsuits were filed and have ongoing lawsuits with Chapter 125 claims against 2 sexually oriented businesses. The city will continue to use every available tool to rein in crime with its limited resources. It is imperative that we continue our efforts to reduce crime at local businesses through increased crime prevention through environmental design. To that end, the administration has asked the city attorney to draft an ordinance for council approval requiring city security cameras on certain classes of businesses where the increase in crime is concentrated. This will augment what council did in 2008, where cameras cover the inside and those entering through the doors. These cameras will cover the outward public areas and will survey the immediate and surrounding public areas. And the footage will be held to be used by law enforcement where crimes occur. There are too many people lingering in the parking lots of convenience stores and others late at night where crime is occurring in our city. I am here to say to you in the clearest terms I can, that time is now over, and all must participate in creating a safe environment. With regards to the court backlog, each major city faces similar challenges, but Harris County has the greatest number of backlog court cases than any other city in Texas, and probably more than any other in the country, with more than 100,000 cases. We took a look at the backlog in Manhattan Borough in New York. Their backlog is about 12,000, about 4,000 felony cases. There are about 5 boroughs in New York. If you multiply that 12,000 by 5, it's still less than the backlog of criminal cases in Harris County. This condition is unacceptable, and it must come to an end. It is undisputed that several factors have negatively impacted portions of the Harris County criminal justice process. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey caused major damage and disruption to the operation of our local court system, and thus the ability of our local criminal justice system to adjudicate cases expeditiously. This unfortunate situation, coupled with the global pandemic that followed, has created a criminal court backlog. The city of Houston is poised to work collaboratively with Harris County Commissioner's Court, the District Attorney's Office, to address these challenges. What is clear is that the criminal court backlog is impacting the county's ability to bring violent offender cases to completion. Accordingly, it is imperative that all criminal justice stakeholders work together to design a plan to clear the criminal case backlog, especially those involving offenders charged with violent crimes and who pose the greatest risk of harm to our community. Regardless of what we do, even if we add more police, even if we use more technology, even when we work to put more dollars behind all of these other elements, if the backlog remains this high, we will always be fighting against the grain. It will not work, and it certainly will not work the way it is required. The backlog must be addressed. We will do our part, and thus the city, to that end, the city will provide $1.5 million in additional funding to the Houston Forensic Science Center to do its work timely in providing the evidence and whatever is needed for these cases to be handled. But again, and I hate to keep saying it, but let me be clear on this. Ultimately, what is needed? More courts, more judges, more staffing. More courts, more judges, more staffing. But the backlog in Harris County is too much, and we will always be running against the grain. The criminal justice system does not operate efficiently, or in the interest of victims when any part of the system is not functioning as designed. It is incumbent for us to recognize that the backlog of criminal justice cases and the delay in the adjudication of violent offenders can also be exacerbated if bail bond amounts are reduced to a nominal level. Bail bonding companies are in some instances now requiring substantially less than the customary 10% required to post bond. I have instructed the city legal department to draft an ordinance for the consideration by the Houston City Council, which will require that a bail bond company charge a premium which is equal to at least 10% of the amount of the bail bond set by the court. This would require that the cost of a bail bond be equal to what the public generally believes to be the cost of such a bond rather than some lesser amount. I also call upon the Harris County Bail Bond Board to adopt a regulation requiring that all companies issuing bonds within Harris County charge a premium equal to at least 10% of the amount of the bond. If the Bail Bond Board were to adopt such a standard for the entire county, then the city would consider it unnecessary to move forward with the passage of the proposed ordinance. But until that is done, I have asked Attorney Michelle to move now to putting this on the books. Time is not our friend. With regards to crisis intervention, response, and recovery, the community has an active role to play. The city will allocate $2.5 million for the implementation of the Cure Violence program in targeted communities. The Cure Violence model trains and deploys outreach workers and violence interrupters to mitigate conflict on the streets before it turns violent. These credible messengers are community advocates and leaders who are trusted members of their communities and use their street credibility to model and teach more effective methods to community and resolve conflicts. The police cannot do it alone. The community has a role to play, and community leaders and advocates have a role to play. Together, we are part of a winning team. But when we don't work together or just rely on one element, we will not be nearly as successful. And so we are calling upon the community to play an active role in being in the community, utilizing their credibility in turning people from violence and providing them with alternative solutions. Also, the Community Reinterest Network program has been effective. This program is designed to help formerly incarcerated individuals reintegrate into the community by providing access to workforce development tools, mental and behavioral health resources, housing, and other basic needs. To date, the Houston Health Department reentry program successfully reduced recidivism to 4.2%, as compared to the state recidivism rate of 21.4%. To expand the program's footprint, the Houston Health Department will collaborate with Harris County to implement these interventions and partners with community-based organizations to support program expansion. The city will further invest $1 million to increase the number of program participants in the reentry program from 500 to 750. There are numerous studies noting the increased prevalence of domestic violence because of the pandemic, with many incidents later leading to homicides. The year-over-year statistics for HPD on aggravated assaults with impeding of breath incidents has increased 113% from 2019 to 2020. My office had previously used CARES Act dollars to stand up these programs, and when that funding was exhausted, the City of Houston began using ARPA funding for these services. They are already deployed and are already making a difference. But what we are seeing with increasing domestic violence incidents, which can quickly lead to lethal confrontations, need more. Today, I'm announcing an additional $3 million effort to provide more services for survivors and prevention efforts to combat domestic violence. These programs supporting survivors include forensic nurses directly contracted with HPD. These medical forensic exams provide critical history about the survivors that can be helpful for community-based advocates. Emergency sheltering for victims of domestic violence. After the forensic medical exam is completed, survivors are offered emergency housing and other supportive services. Additionally, the City of Houston will look to prevent domestic violence by investing in education and outreach to targeted communities, and you will hear more in a moment from Manel Patel Davis. In conclusion, this is a public health crisis, and as a city, we will and must address the crisis through law enforcement, public health practitioners, and community partners working together. No one can escape accountability, and no one can wait on somebody else to solve the problem. Everyone has a role to play. And there are people in our community who know people who have either committed a crime or thinking about committing a crime. You too have a responsibility. We cannot legislate that from here, but you have a responsibility to do everything you can to keep our city safe. The strategy we outlined today is a blueprint for the city that can guide us beyond 2022. It's not just a strategy for now, but it is a holistic, comprehensive strategy that can keep our city safe in years to come. With the collaboration of all stakeholders, including business owners, faith-based leaders, and organizations that work with those experiencing family violence and mental illness, I am confident that we will reduce violence and emerge as one resilient city, one unified city, and one safe city. It does not come cheap. And the total cost of this program, when you include our crisis intervention, the overtime, buyback program, our investment in our park rangers, our investment in our Cure Community program, investment in the reentry program, and let me not forget about our investments in our youth, because a part of this program is to provide at least 12,000 summer intern jobs for our youth 16 to 24, with a stretch goal of 15,000 for this coming summer. That's a part that everyone can play. But the total cost of all of these initiatives for the city of Houston will be about $44 million. Public safety is our number one issue. But I want to end before I turn it over to Chief Fenner to speak directly to our police officers. Let there be no question that this city is with you, stands with you, supportive of you, wants you working with HPD. We stand with you. But we also recognize that for so long, we have asked police to do everything, and they cannot. It is unfair to them, and quite frankly, it is unsafe. So when all of us join in, and I'm asking the business community to join in, because they have a role to play. Many of our technology needs, the business communities and others can help to support. We are being able to lay out this plan because of the opera dollars. But for the opera dollars, we would not be able to do what we are doing today. And so we stand ready to work with the county, to work with the state, to work with our federal partners, to work with Crime Stoppers, to work with the community, to work with our faith-based leaders and others, to making our city as safe as it can humanly be. And I'm someone who firmly believes that we will get that done. And I can promise the people in this city that we will do everything, working with City Council, everything in our power to make sure that you have a safe place in which to live and play.